Hello there, I hope you're doing well. My name is Kevin, and here at my channel we learn how to make the web and how to make it look good with weekly tips, tricks, and tutorials. And in this video we are going to be diving into the outline property. We're going to start off by looking at how you can use it for debugging in a more effective way than using borders. Because there's a trick where you can sort of try and find what's causing overflows and other issues with borders. We're going to be doing it with outline instead. We'll be looking at why outline is a better choice than doing borders. And we're going to look at how we can do this cool effect here where we get like this transparent box on top of this, no extra markup required. And then we'll just play around with this a little bit and do some fun stuff where we actually move it to the inside of the box, but not right on the edge, and explore outline a little bit because it's a really cool and underappreciated property. Let's jump right into it. So really quickly, before we dive into it, what is an outline? So an outline is this sort of bluish box that shows up like that, which is the default, which people always turn off. Like it's super common to see something like outline 0 or outline none, and people just turn it off everywhere because they don't like that box that shows up on stuff. First of all, don't do that. Never take outlines off of things unless you're going to replace it with another focus state, because that is the focus that is coming in. So you need to have something that's showing it for accessibility purposes. That's not the focus of this video though. In this video we want to be looking at the cool and fun things we can do with it. If you've never seen outline before, it's really simple. It works very much like borders. You'll get a good idea of how it works in this video, but I also have done another video that goes into just how to use it in a lot more detail. Here in this video we're really focusing on the cool fun things you can use it for instead of the basics of exactly how it works. Here we are in CodePens, so I'm not in VS Code like I usually am because they're just quick examples that I want to take a look at. The link to both of these that we'll be looking at are in the description down below. This one's actually something I used for an article over on CSS Tricks about locally scoping custom properties instead of always having them in the global scope. There's a link to that in the description as well if you want to check it out. I have played around with it a little bit for this video because you might notice I have a horizontal scroll bar here, and horizontal scroll bars are the worst because sometimes even when you're looking through it, everything that's going on, you have no idea what's causing it. And I've exaggerated this. It's really, really big. And one common thing that you'll find to try and solve this issue is to come and set a, we're going to select everything with our star here. So we're selecting absolutely everything and then throw a border on that. Now, a lot of time on this border, I would do 1 pixel and I'd set it for solid. And I'd usually set red, but just because we have all this orange in here, I think I'm going to use yellow this time. I think it's going to help everything just pop off a little bit. And that, if we scroll down, or what we do is we scroll into this area and you can see that, well, now I can see easily what's shooting off the side. Doesn't always get us the solution as easily as that, but in this case, it's doing a really nice job. But there's one small problem with this, and I've exaggerated this a lot. So it's a really big scroll bar. Sometimes it's a little tiny scroll bar that you have. Like it's a really a little nothing. And notice if I put this to 0, when I go back to 1, the whole layout is shifting. Because when we use borders, we're actually adding to the dimensions of everything. Everything's in this case is actually in 2 pixels taller and 2 pixels wider because of how the border, right? We have a top and bottom border. So that's 2 pixels, 1 pixel on the top, 1 pixel on the bottom. And we also have the same on the left and the right. So this is where outline can really come in handy. If I use outline, let's even exaggerate this. Let's do it at 10 pixels. And you'll notice that nothing is actually shifting around. Outlines don't actually affect the dimensions of everything. They're visual only, and they have no actual impact. So if it's a little tiny something that's causing an issue, the thing I really like with the outline is that, and again, I wouldn't always go up to 10, but you could do a 2 or 3 pixels without really worrying about anything shifting. You know your layout is staying exactly how you made it, except now you have all these boxes that are showing up and everything. And at one point you can see we have all this stuff sticking out the side, and you go, oh yeah, those look like they're coming on my list items. For some reason, I made those 200% wide, so we turn that off and we fix all of our problems. So just for troubleshooting, if ever you are using borders, I'd strongly encourage using outline instead because it can make your life a little bit easier and it can be a little bit more effective just because it causes no shifts whatsoever in your layout when you use them. Let's come over to this other example and look at some fun things we can do with it and some comparisons to box shadow, because a few of these things you can actually pull off with box shadow. So on here, I'm going to be looking at my content first. So here's a cool effect that you can do. And what we're going to do is an outline on here of, let's say 25 pixels solid. And I'm going to do an RGBA of 0.5. And you can get this nice cool effect. And actually, let's make that bigger. Let's make it like I don't know, 75 pixels, just to exaggerate the effect a little bit more. And you get this nice effect where you get this like cool box coming around here that's also showing your background. Maybe going, but Kevin, I can do that with a border. But guess what? You can't. So the problem with this is the white background is actually filling up that space. So if I took off the white background, you can see now it's actually working, but it's not quite the effect that we're after anymore. Now to get this to work, you could by adding in a background clip and changing it. I think we want a padding box in this case. So the background will stop with the padding. So, you know, we're sort of doing the same thing, but now it's taking 2 steps because we have to do our background clip and our border. So already we're writing more code. And let's just say this got really, really big. It could start having an effect on my layout because it's getting bigger than the entire size of its parent. Or let's even go up to 200. And you can see it's shrinking down everything here to make sure that it can actually fit the 200. Because outline is only visual, it's not actually affecting on the sides. It's spilling out over on the sides, but it's visual only. So it's not even going to cause an overflow. It's not going to cause any horizontal, or if it was a problem up and down, it wouldn't cause any vertical scrolling. So that's kind of interesting and kind of fun about it. But I think the better thing is that we don't need to bother with the background clip and that we can still get this pretty fun effect going on like that. Now this you could actually pull off with a box shadow though too. So box shadow, we could do 0, 0, 0, no offset horizontally, no offset vertically, no blur, and a 50 pixel spread. And RGBA 0, 0, 0.5. Whoop, we're missing one. There we go. And we start getting the same thing coming in. And the same benefits this has, box shadows are visual only. So if it's really big, it doesn't cause any horizontal scrolling. It doesn't affect anything in the long term. So you could pull this off with a box shadow if you really wanted to. I do think the outline is a little bit easier to understand what's actually going on here though. If someone were to randomly run into the code, we could figure this one out, but I think this one is a little bit more clear. But one thing you cannot do with a box shadow that you can do with an outline is you can add in your outline offset. And the cool thing with an offline offset, let's start with 25 pixels. We can offset it, so it gives us this transparent area in between. And let's just switch this over to like red for the moment so we can see it a little clearer. So we can see that we're getting that offset there. So if I drop this down to 20 and I want to make this like 75, you can get this nice cool effect just like that. I think that's pretty neat. But the thing that's the best about this, let's switch this over to black and maybe 5 pixels is that we can give this a negative value as well. So if my offline offset is like a negative 15 pixels, it goes inside my box, and that's super cool too. So the offsets we can put on outlines, I find you can do some really cool and really fun things with. So I really, really like that. One thing that's important to know is if the offset is the same thickness as the outline, it's going to look like it's not working because it's starting at negative 15, but then it's filling up that space back. So you could do like a negative 30. So then this and this are the same size, and you can do some cool stuff with that. Now, one thing you cannot do with them, which you can do with shadows, is you can't have multiple outlines. I wish we could, because then you could have one like this and then another one on the outside. You could pull that off with pseudo elements or some other trickery. But in this case, we can't do it like that, but some fun things that you can do with outlines. Now, at the very beginning of this, I did talk a little bit about this, and if you are curious about custom properties like this and you haven't used them before, I have that article on CSS tricks that I have linked down below, and there's also the link to the first video in a 6-part series that explores custom properties, because if you haven't started using them, you really have to start using them. They are amazing. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you learned something new. If you did, please let me know about it in the comments, or if you have a creative way to be using those, please let me know. A huge thank you to my patrons for making everything I do here possible. You guys are the best. And of course, until next time, don't forget to make your corner of the internet just a little bit more awesome.